Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for joining the show. I am your host, Coach Tripp, and we're here with a special guest, two special guests, really good friends of mine. This is the Saturday show, so this is the big deal. This is a lot of fun. Nick Zangari up in your right-hand corner. Everybody knows him, owner of Badlands Bar, seen Springsteen 47 times, I think, and down at the bottom of your screen is Mike White. He's a good old teammate of mine, co-captain of mine in the 1984 Iron Bowl. And Mike's an interesting story, as you can see, scrolling along the bottom there. He was a great player for us at Bama, and then went on to become a Navy SEAL, actor, and head of security for not only Springsteen, but Melinda Gates. And so, Mike, let's start at the beginning, buddy. Okay? Tell everybody where you grew up, your mom and dad and siblings, and how you got to get to Alabama.
Grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. And even though, Atlanta is Bulldog territory, was never when I was trying to be a football player, I always had in the back of my mind, because Alabama was just had an incredible run going. And Nick, I'll throw this out there to you, because we kind of will eventually evolve into music. I was I was a junior in high school, and was starting to get some attention as a high school football player. And I was in a McDonald's. And I can still remember this like it happened last week, but that Steely Dan song, Deacon Blues, was playing. And it says they call Alabama the Crimson Tide. And I remember thinking, that is an amazing thing for just some pop culture song to recognize Alabama as such a winning institution. And so for me, at 17 years old, I was like, wow, if only, they would show some attention to me. So, and D. Powell, who was our old offensive line coach at Alabama, he was also the guy who recruited the Atlanta area. And as soon as he asked me if I wanted to come to Alabama, it was yes. And Paul, you came as it was a really interesting story as a walk-on player. And you came down to Alabama and really had to earn your keep, and went through a lot of hard times, more so than some others that came there with a little fanfare. Well, in the world where they rate players, like 2-star, 5-star, 4-star, whatever, I was maybe a 2-star, 3-star player. I didn't come with with a whole lot of accolades, and it was but Alabama, I think, was the perfect place for guys like us, because you really had to just had to suck it up, and you had to learn how to just deal with not necessarily being at the top of the depth chart, and learn how to work your way in on the off season and work your way in practice any way you could.
Yeah, Al Miller, we're going to talk about him in a second, but your the O-line group is always a tight group. Talk about some of your O-linemen and some of the guys that helped you become co-captain.
Well, we were both the same way. We both got there in 80, and we were 5-year guys. So, a lot of the guys that I came in with finished up to 1-2 years earlier than us.
Yeah.
So, but I really think that the offensive line is it's the only position really on the field where it's just a group. You're really all together. You're no farther away than a couple of feet from the guy that you're playing with. So we really kind of built a good bond. And Steve Mott, I played behind Steve, and until I moved over and played guard. But Steve Mott was a great player. I mean, All-American, great pro for the Detroit Lions for a long time. And Steve and I still stay in touch. He's still a really good friend here in Alabama. And Doug Vickers was my roommate, and he was a really good player. And he came in, kind of as one of the elite players on the team. And Mike Adcock, and there were just so many guys that were great. And I was also a defensive player that I still stay in really close contact with is Randy Edwards. And we really formed that relationship. Steve, Doug, and Randy and I, we were all like weight room goons. We were like, and you had Al Miller on last week, which was such a treat. He's just such a legend, but we were the guys that we really figured it out. And it was just what we liked to do, was just get in the gym and go look.
What was your greatest memory? What do you take away as one of the things that you'll never forget, and maybe a greatest moment?
Well, you mentioned it before, and you and I talked offline. I don't want to turn this into that.
Yeah.
But when
is it the same thing as mine?
Our last game of our careers, because in Alabama, before us, while we were there, and obviously since, has just been one of the elite programs across college football. And we had a rough year that year, and we were seniors, but I think that you and I especially, and I'm not just talking out of school, it was what it was, but we were kind of a glue that really held together a team that was kind of in disarray because we weren't used to losing. We went 5-6 that year, so we didn't get to go to a bowl game. So the final game of the season was the Iron Bowl, and I remember Coach Ray Perkins gathering the team up and saying, "Hey, we need to vote for captains." And then they held the senior class afterwards, and because that had always been the tradition that the captains were selected before the Auburn game, but then we would go on and play a bowl game and all that. Well, right. We got selected. From what I remember, it was by a vast majority, and you and I were selected as captains of that game, and
we beat Bo Jackson.
Yeah, we did. And we won the game, and it was a great game, and it was exciting, and everybody had such a great time. But I just remember how much fun that was to know this was the last time you were going to play. I mean, you went on and played in the National Football League for a while, and, I had aspirations to do that. But I knew no matter what, this is going to be the game that, I'm going to live or die in Alabama by this game. And we walked out of there. We won the game. Place was going nuts, and it was.
Mike, I'm glad you said that, because the All SEC and All American Strength Team and all that stuff doesn't even, it pales comparison to be nominated as a captain by your peers, because that's who. And I can only imagine. I got so much respect for you, Mike. Let's talk about. We're going to talk about one more Bama thing, and then we're going to get into your Navy SEAL training, which is a beautiful story itself. What do you remember about December 29th, 1982, in that week in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl when we won 21-15 over Illinois? I remember Al Miller running us and Coach Bryant going over and saying, "Al, I told you to run him at the kill."
Oh, yeah.
I remember Jeremiah Castile's speech, in the team players. Do you remember that one?
I remember it really well, and it's really interesting because I am friends with Jeremiah to this day. I've been to several events that Jeremiah has put on, and I was at we were at some dinner, and he was talking about Coach Bryant in the last game and his speech and kind of how he felt about Coach Bryant. But I will tell you this, I remember Jeremiah giving a different speech, and I really appreciated the way he said it then. And I think over the last 40 plus years, it's evolved and become something different. But I remember him saying, we certainly want to win to send Coach Bryant out as a winner, but we need to play this game for ourselves, because we have put a lot into this, and this is something that we will walk away from it feeling like we let ourselves down if we didn't win. And I remember thinking, that wasn't what I expected.
Me either. I didn't understand it at the time. I wasn't mature enough to understand that.
I was like, dang, that is really impressive that he said that. But, over the years, as legends grow, he's kind of morphed into him talking more about the old man. But I really believe that, but it was really about winning the game for ourselves. And, of course, I played a decent amount. I'll tell you this story. I told this on a radio show not too long ago, but this is one thing I'll always remember about Coach Bryant. We were playing we were playing Auburn in the Iron Bowl earlier that year. And, we lost, Bo Jackson over the top and all that. And we had beaten them for 10 years in a row, and they beat us. Mm-hmm. The week before that, or the game before that, we had played Southern Mississippi. And that was the first game that I got to play a lot. I got, I didn't start, but I came in like one series into the game and played a lot. And I got a clipping penalty that really wasn't a good thing. And I got pulled out of the game after right in the second. I didn't play in the second half. And the old man was really mad at me, And I remember thinking, this was my one big moment to really have a big game, and I kind of let him down, and I really felt bad about it. So anyway, I knew I wasn't going to be like a major, in the rotation during that Iron Bowl. And I'm sitting in Legion Field in the locker room, and it was in some corner of the, just some, how crappy that locker room was. When I was in some remote little corner of that locker room and sitting on a little taping table by myself before the game. And Coach Bryant, I could hear him shuffling around the corner. And he came around the corner, and it was just the two of us. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, my father, you may not even known this, Paul, but my dad had some trouble when I was in college. He got involved in some illegal activity. He had to go to prison. And this was for like 81 to 83. He was not around at all when I was in school. And I went in and had a long heart-to-heart conversation with Coach Bryant about that. And he kind of checked in with me, from time to time, but nothing major, but I had this long heart-to-heart with him before that 82 season because, he was gone. Yeah. And we were sitting there in Legion Field, and he came around the corner and he goes, "Hey, how's your dad doing?" And I told him, it was cool, but he kind of put his hand on my shoulder, and it was kind of his way of saying, "Hey, don't worry about that penalty last week. Who cares? I just want to make sure you're okay." And I appreciated that so much. And then, the game happened the way the game happened. It was what it was, but that was a big deal to me.
Yeah, those little things he did. He preached doing little things, the things thing, but it's the little things that he did, the personal one-on-ones that we had with him. The one-on-one I had with him turned my career around, the one-on-one I had with Coach Bryant. All right, so
I don't think we really realized that at the time, and I think I told you this when we just were talking on the phone, but we didn't realize that at the time how big of a deal it was, because, man, we were just idiots. We were 19, 20 years old. We didn't know. We were just trying not to embarrass ourselves, and then we get, into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and we go, that was a pretty big deal, man.
That's so true. Mike, after college, you got such an amazing story. You went in the military after college, went to Navy SEALs training. Yeah. Talk about your decision to go in the Navy and the Special Forces and the great El Miller inspirational story that you put in your locker. Tell that story.
Well, I'll tell you, I got a chance to go. The Giants gave me a free agent contract, and I got released by the Giants. And then because we played with Mike Shula, Mike contacted me after I'd come home from New York, and he said, "Hey, my dad wants to talk to you." So I went down and I got a chance to go try out with the Dolphins. I was in camp with them and I got released. And I came home and I was like, well, now what I'm going to do? So I started working in this gym. I kind of was like the manager of this country club gym in Tuscaloosa. Mm-hmm. This guy who was one of the workout guys in there, he was in ROTC, and he came in and he goes, "You know what, man, you need to look into this program. It's really cool." And it was a magazine he gave me, and he said, it's about the Navy SEALs. I didn't know I never even heard of it before. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought, you know what, this looks really, really freaking hard. And that's kind of in keeping with the personality that I had when I was in football. So yeah, let's do it. Why not? And I didn't really know how to swim well. And Don Gambrell, who was the legendary swim, he was like the Bear Bryant of swim coaches, who was at Alabama.
Yeah.
And I went to Coach Gambrell, and I said, Coach, I know how to swim. I can get across the pool, but I don't know much about it. Can you help me? So he helped me with my swimming strokes, and I really got better at that. And then I just, I lost a bunch of weight because I was an offensive lineman. I was like 265 pounds. I lost about 50 pounds and ended up, going into the Navy, went through officer candidate school, and then, went to SEAL training right away. I got selected to be a SEAL candidate just from my testing and everything. But the crazy part about it was I didn't have any childhood aspirations of being in. I remember when we were in school, that movie, An Officer and a Gentleman was popular. And I remember
we had teammates. Like my dad was in World War II. We had teammates that were their dads were in the service.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. There's no way in hell I'm going to do this, Well, a couple years later, there I was. And so I went to BUDS, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Graduated, went to SEAL Team 2, and was at SEAL Team 2 as assistant platoon commander and then a platoon commander for about 6 years. And then went back out. I was an instructor for a couple years. And then I went to another command in Hawaii, and then, transitioned out from there. But I spent a little over 11 years in the Navy and was a SEAL the whole time. Got a chance to go do a lot of cool stuff, and make some great relationships. One thing that I think, and you've heard Nick Saban say this, and I know we're speeding through this. There's so much more to it, but we, the thing about the SEAL program is it's known as the SEAL teams, and so going from a place like Alabama where, it's obviously a team, and then transition into the Navy and being in a team, it was just part of my mentality, and just part of what I really felt like I was best suited to be part of it.
Mike, I can't think of a more capable guy from our team than you to be a Navy SEAL. And talk about the training. You talked about the team aspect of it, but the training aspect, Navy SEALs are known for their preparation and capability. But Al Miller, talk about what you have in your locker during Navy trail. Who did you have a picture of?
Well, the training itself, it's really hard. It's 6 months, and it's, it's first phase is just the basic conditioning phase. And I think, everybody's seen the videos of the guys running around with the rubber boats on their heads or the logs, on their, over their shoulders and all that. And, just wet, sandy, cold, wet, miserable. And it's about an 8-week program. And it's about 5 weeks in is when you go through Hell Week, which is a 6-day cycle. You go Sunday to Friday, and you get about a cumulative 4 hours sleep over the period of 6 days. And it's go. You're go, and it's cold. It's just, you don't realize how cold it can get in San Diego until you get in that water, like 58 degrees, 55 degree water. And it'll change you.
It'll test you.
It'll break your will pretty fast. And but it really is hard. It sucks. And then second phase at the time was land warfare phase, where you learn all about small unit tactics, weapons, demolitions, just a number of different, a lot of practical training. And then in third phase is when you get to diving and you learn, just a lot of different aspects of, but now it's switched. That's diving is second. But anyway, you mentioned about Coach Miller, and, for those who didn't see your previous show, Al Miller was one of those kind of coaches. And I know you've been in the game a long time, and you aspire to be one of these men who influences young men. But Coach Miller, I'll be honest with you, I got coached by a lot of people from youth football through high school into college. I got a list of about one guy that really made me want to be a better ball player, made me want to be a better athlete, made me want to be a better guy, tough, just hard nosed. And I really felt like I adopted the Al Miller philosophy that I use today. I can tell you about the workout I did today that'll choke you out. It was hard because, I mean, in so many days, I just think about him. But I put a little picture of Coach Miller. It was just a little, like a wallet-sized picture that would have been in the media guide or a calendar or something like that. And I put it in my locker when I was going through buds because, you know, so many people quit. It's like a 75% plus 75, 80% attrition rate. You know, you start with 100, you finish with 20.
Yeah.
And I had it in my locker because I didn't want to go home and have to tell Coach Miller I'd quit. I swear to God, that's what I did. And, because, you know, I felt like he would have been somebody that would have really been proud of me as
right.
making it through training and going on and having a career as a SEAL and going, you know, doing, you know, being in different combat scenarios and whatnot. But
Mike, let me ask you this. I was talking to a veteran special forces guy not too long ago, a year or two ago. And he talked, and I was talking about the decline in scholastic participation, especially football and sports, over the last 10, 15 years. And he assimilated it to the special forces are down in numbers, volunteers, because 90% of them, he was giving me stats, like 90% of the special forces guys are ex-high school athletes, ex-football players.
Yeah.
Were a lot of guys in the SEAL, were they ex-high school athletes and football players?
Yeah, you know, I tell you, the one sport that was probably the most represented, and you would think it'd be swimming for the SEAL team, but the guys that I served with, and now we're talking a long time ago, but the guys that I served with were wrestlers.
Oh,
because I'm gonna tell you, I think wrestlers. Yeah. I didn't wrestle in high school, but those dudes were tough. And they were absolute studs. And a lot of those guys, I served with a lot of team guys that were wrestlers, and they were hardcore. But you know, I don't know what the new numbers look like. That logic makes sense. You know, the beauty of the SEAL teams, we really have a bond of guys that, you know, they're just highly intelligent, voracious readers. And just really committed guys, but not all of them are athletes. You know, you might have one guy who was a star football player, and then you might have some other guy that worked on cars for it. You know, and mechanic. Okay. But there's a certain kind of mindset. There's obviously a certain athleticism that you need to have, but for the most part,
you got to be smart and tough. You got to be both.
It's a special breed, and the things that have gone on post 9/11. You know, I one of my really close friends, and we're all getting together for a reunion next month out in San Diego, just our platoon. But one of my real close friends, he went on and served all the way up, retired in 2014. He was on the Osama bin Laden raid, and he gave a Memorial Day speech down at the Navy SEAL Museum. And I would encourage anyone who's listening to go to Navy SEAL Museum. Just search Navy SEAL Museum, and then you click on Memorial Day, and you'll see Dave Cooper's speech. But it was just talking about all the different people that he had been around that he lost. And, you know, some of those were the star quarterback in high school. You know, some were just some redneck from Tallahassee, Florida, who wasn't an athlete, you know, but it's such a broad spectrum of people that come together for a common goal.
Cause, yeah.
Oh
my gosh. All right, Nick, now we're going to talk a little Springsteen, how you got into, you got to tell me, was it the 2003 Rising Tour? Is that when you were the head of security of Springsteen?
Yeah, it was. I will tell you this, Nick. We were on deployment in 1992, and I had seen Bruce. You know, I'd seen him a handful of times, you know, just as a fan. So in 1992, we had a little downtime, and we were stationed in Europe, and we were doing some work over in Eastern Europe. And we had a little downtime, a couple weeks, and Bruce was playing in London. And so 3 of the other guys from my platoon, I said, hey, guys, we're going to rent a car, and we're going to drive to London, and we're going to go to the show. And so they're like, okay, cool. So we go. We drive, and we're all excited. And I devised a plan on the way to London. And the guys are sleeping in the car, and I'm driving. And I woke one of the guys up. I said, look, this is what's going to happen. We're going to meet some of the crew. We're going to get backstage passes, and we're going to get to meet the man. They were like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we get to London. The first night we arrive, and we go. I was like, what would be the best place to go? So we go to the Hard Rock Cafe. This is a long story, but it's worth the payoff. We go to Hard Rock Cafe, and I go, and there's just a line. It's over in Hyde Park, and it's just this huge line. So I cut to the front of the line, and I said, hey, we're some American servicemen, and we're just here in town to enjoy London. And these guys are like, oh, come on in, mate. Walked us right in, and we're like right in. We get front of the line privileges. And I go to this girl who's running the hostess table. I said, hey, do you know if any Bruce Springsteen's crew, because they were there for like 4 days. Yeah. You know, any Springsteen crew, they come in there, and he goes, well, actually, there's like 3 guys here right now. And I said, point them out to me. They point them out to me, and I go over to them, and I said, hey, what are you guys drinking? And they were like, whatever. So I bought them a round of whatever they had. And these were like the guitar guys, the roadies. Sat down with them. And I told my guys, just go over to the bar and just have a seat. I got this. So I sat in with them, and I was hanging out with them for like 30 minutes. And I walked back over to my teammates. I went, all right, we're in. We got tickets for tomorrow night. We got backstage passes. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yep. So the next day we go to the show, and Bruce had this legendary guy. Nick, you probably know this name. Terry McGovern was Bruce Springsteen's right-hand man. I mean, Terry was the dude. And he's a former Navy frogman, diver. He wasn't a SEAL, but right before the SEAL, teams were formed up, he was a diver. So Terry just loved us from the get-go. And I stayed in close contact with Terry. I actually got to meet Bruce, went backstage. Terry just called me over, and we went in, and he and I sat down. I met Bruce the first night I was in London, and got to shake his hand and, just kind of got to know him. But Terry and I stayed in really close contact. And then after I got out of the Navy, I was working for, like you said, Paul, I was working for Bill and Melinda Gates up in Seattle. And Terry, they were getting ready to go on tour. And I really was like, I don't know if I want to stay in the Northwest. I got 3 kids. Do we want to stay here? So anyway, long story short, Terry called me one day and said, hey, would you be interested in coming on this tour with us? And, because we had talked, since I was in the security business and bodyguard business. And I said, you know what? Perfect time. So I went and met with Bruce up in Canada. We were just right across the line in Seattle. So I drove up to Vancouver and sat down with Bruce and George Travis, who was the tour director, and Terry, and they hired me. And I picked up, and that was like the very beginning of the tour. And so I went on tour with them. And, so, that's what I did. It was pretty, it's a fun job, because I was such a fan. Bruce was a real, when I worked for the Gates, you kind of stayed out of their way. You just
what's the boss like, man? What's Bruce like?
Bruce was just a real, just like you would imagine. He was a real warm, real hands-on. We got to be, I don't say friends, but we got to know each other. He was a big workout guy.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Have you ever worked out with him?
We would go to the gym. He had a personal trainer who would go, and we had 2 of us. So one of the guys would go and kind of advance and make sure the gym was all cool. And then Bruce and I and his trainer would drive to the venue, and, we would go, and, Bruce worked out pretty hard, and I would just go in there and work out. I wouldn't work out like side by side, but, I'd be close by.
Yeah.
But I tell you, you'll appreciate this. It's funny. We were in Hartford, Connecticut. And so we were looking for a gym. And so we found this gym. And so we went to this front desk, and it was like Eric, who was my partner, he had already advanced the place. So, there was no photographers or anybody there. So we show up, and I go up to the front desk, and Bruce signs his name, signs in on the sign-in sheet. They didn't even know, that we were coming. So he signs his name on the sign-in sheet, and then the trainer signs his name. And then the girl behind the desk and the guy who's like the manager go, well, that'll be $25. And Bruce kind of looks at me like, seriously? And I was like, no, you got to go ahead and I'll take care of this. And so I went to the guy and I went, hey, do you not know who that is? He's like, no, man. I said, that's Bruce Springsteen. And he goes, let me see that sign-in sheet. So he looks at the sign-in sheet and it says Bruce Springsteen on the sign-in sheet. And he goes, that's not Bruce Springsteen. He signed his name. And he goes, that's not his real name. And I went, do you think if the guy had a choice, he would have chosen that as his name? That's not the name. Right? So anyway, he realized that he was Bruce. And so he worked out for free.
Was there any like incidents, any crazy fanatics, or was there great shows that you remember? One of the greatest shows he put on?
I'll tell you, in terms of incidents, we were doing a phase of the show. I mean, probably multiple shows out in Los Angeles, out at Dodger Stadium. And there was, prior to the show, this is where social media and all that was not even present. But somebody had sent a bunch of hate mail to Clarence Clemens, the big man. Mm-hmm. And so they got it to us. And so we were connected with a lot of the local law enforcement. And I had a guy who was I could pick up the phone. He was at FBI, SAIC, and he could pulls a lot of triggers for us. So anyway, we kind of tracked down where this was coming from and got Clarence taken care of. So he wasn't afraid, because he was pretty afraid. Some of this stuff was pretty bad. Yeah. But I really love Clarence. He was a cool dude.
Was he? What a beautiful sound. The saxophone. What a beautiful sound.
Clarence he used to call me Dick Tracy. I don't think he really knew my name. But he called me Dick Tracy, and I was like, yeah, man, that's a pretty cool name,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good nickname.
Shape in my head or something. I was like, yeah, that's cool. I'll take that. But,
I can think of worse nicknames.
Yeah, but we had an incident one time, and we were in Boston, did a show at Fenway. And I don't know if you ever saw him at a baseball stadium, Nick. It's pretty crazy. He went through this whole phase where he was doing these baseball stadium tours.
Right.
And he did a show in Fenway, and the Fenway's a pretty small place. I don't know if you've ever been to Fenway Park, but it's pretty small. It's like 40,000 people can fit, for a game. Maybe less, maybe like 30. But anyway, there were probably 35,000 people sold out in the show, in the venue, and there were probably at least that many people out on Yawkey Way, just right outside, because you could hear the concert from the street,
Right.
And so we get out. Bruce was not a limousine guy, he was a van guy. And we got out into the van, right there in the little under the stadium. And so we start to make our way out, and it's like packed. And Bruce used to like to do this thing. He called it poping, like the Pope, you wave at people. And so Bruce gets in, he got up on, and I'm sitting behind him, and Patty, his wife, is sitting right next to me in the back seat, in the middle seat, and there's some other people in the back. And Bruce is in the front seat, so he can stretch out. And so Bruce gets in the freaking window, right there in the front door, And so he's sitting, if you can imagine, his back is to the crowd, but he's sitting in the window, and he's waving at people. So I'm like, oh man. So I go under the seat with my left hand, and I grabbed his belt, and I'm holding onto his belt. And then it was one of those doors. It wasn't vans that didn't have a sliding door. It was like a open, like a swing door. So I kind of opened it up just a little bit, just to open it to, in case he falls out, I got to jump into the crowd and do this. I mean, this place is like the last helicopter out of Saigon. There are people just swarming this dang van, and they're pulling on him, and he's starting to realize this is not cool, man. I mean, I get mauled here.
Yeah.
So I got the the van door kind of open, and I kind of opened it a little bit, and it pops a woman, just like boom. And I'm like, oh, that cleared them out. So I'm just kind of using this like a elbow pad, forearm, knock people out of the way. And so we get out, and I get Bruce back into the van, and I'm like, and his wife is screaming at him, and I'm like, don't ever do that again, And so we get to the little private airport there at Boston, and all these blue lights. There's all these cops right there at the FOB where we're getting ready to board this private plane to fly back to New Jersey. And they come and they want to arrest me for assault with a deadly weapon because I hit these people with a freaking van. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble. So a couple of the people from the tour, including Terry, go and they talk to the cops, and they were fired up. They were pretty mad. I don't think it really hurt anybody, but I would. If you're charging a moving van at 15 miles an hour, you might have to assume some of the risk. And,
gosh, Nick, do you have any questions for Mike or anything about Bruce?
I didn't get arrested.
First things first, you should be proud. Number one, you were able to play in Alabama no matter what capacity. So don't underestimate yourself for being, a player at Alabama. Navy SEALs, you're spot on because of one of my best friends down here. In fact, he does security for me on the side. He was an ex-Navy SEAL, and he teaches Greco-Roman wrestling, which is a washout. Al is, let's see, if I'm 64, he's probably 61 or 62. In fact, the guy holds the Guinness Book of Records for tying cherry stems in a knot with his tongue. He got his 15 minutes of fame, but he's here in Pensacola, and his name is Al Glenecki, if that sounds familiar at all to you.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
So going back, and then, of course, obviously Springsteen. My brother worked out with Springsteen on the 84-85 tour in Syracuse because he was a big workout guy, and Springsteen just happened to check into that because he played the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, and I was there for the show. I wasn't there to work out, but sure enough, my brother was there, and Springsteen was as well. So he worked out with him, and, of course, my brother didn't really, okay, I know who Bruce Springsteen is, but he wasn't like me about Bruce. I'll tell you, the Rising tour, I actually saw 8 different shows, but I camped out at Giant Stadium. The people, the Springsteen fanatics that I know, we were Bruce Cats, we were Spring Nuts, we were, whatever we were, that kind of thing. Well, we rented a Winnebago, and we parked it under the light at 17A in the parking lot of Giant Stadium, so that was our home base. Everybody knew where to meet us. He did 10 nights at Giant Stadium, and I was there for the first 3 nights. And everybody knew where the Winnebago was for. It was you weren't there to stay there, but you were there to it was a meeting place for a lot of things, Michael. Anyway. But I applaud you, from your Alabama days, and I was a walk-on for lacrosse in college, but I ended up walking right back off. So,
Mike, weren't you an actor too?
Yeah,
Did you do some acting?
It was something that was kind of crazy because I worked quite a bit, but it was after I had gotten out of the Navy. When I was finishing up my time in the Navy, I got this bug, and I ended up getting working pretty regularly in the business. But I worked for I was on a couple of different TV series, as a regular, and I did a series of shows with Hulk Hogan and Carl Weathers. It was like a Navy SEALs type show. So that's how I really got the first big part. And so I was a series regular on that, and it was like being a SEAL, but make believe. And then I actually got a chance to be in some pretty big motion pictures with Mel Gibson. It was We Were Soldiers. I don't know if you ever saw that movie with Sam Elliott, Mel Gibson. It was a real good Vietnam story, and I had a decent little part in that. And
Fast and the Furious. Were you in Fast and the Furious?
Yeah. I'll tell you about that in a second. But The Hunted was with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. It was another military type part, but it was pretty cool. It was fun to watch. It was a good little speech that I had in that. And then I was into Fast and Furious. My agent called me and said, "Hey, there's this movie. Do you want to be in it? It's just basically stunt work, but you've got good screen time." And it's the very first scene of the very first installment there's been like 10 of them, and this is the first scene. So I wish I could I get residuals, from movies and TV shows and stuff like that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because you'll get some residuals sometimes that are like, for a while, you might get a residual that's like $5,000, It's like, wow, that was cool. But then as time goes by, that number starts to get smaller, And then I've gotten some that are, like the other day I got one that was for like $25. So, that's completely unexpected. That's kind of cool. But I swear to you, I've had more than you could count of checks that are for like 1-2 cents. There's a check for like 1 cent. Can you imagine?
Were you in Pensacola, Wings of Gold in 1999?
Yeah, I did. I was in it. I played a guy that was like a date rape. It was a date. He was a rapist. It was a bad part, but I played it. I was very charming, and up until the part where that happened, then all of a sudden it wasn't. But yeah, that was kind of cool. I did a lot of that, and it's something that was. It was just a box that I checked. And I will tell you that, a lot of these things, and I've told this story multiple times, but, a lot of these things that you do are just different tiles in your mosaic, where, whether you're a football player or you're a frogman or, actor, security, bodyguard, whatever. Those are cool stories to tell somebody, on a podcast or in a bar somewhere. You could tell, yeah, man, I can tell these great stories. But, about 2015, 2016 is when I really started really learning how to apply a lot of those lessons to business and being a better father, being a better husband, being a better mentor to the people around me. And so then you kind of start to see, how all those different tiles of your mosaic really kind of contribute to really who you are. And, we really, I reach out, and guys like you, Paul, it's so great to be in touch with you, but, stay in touch with a lot of my old football teammates, my old SEAL teammates. We're really close. And that's really been over the past handful of years where we kind of all just kind of take care of each other. And, and I feel that way with, the way it is with my family, and my wife and I are just the relationships. And I think that it all really kind of, if all these other things didn't happen, I don't know how good I would be at what I do now, and I think that it all kind of contributes to that.
Well, you guys go ahead. I was going to wrap it up. Nick, you got a question or anything left or comment?
Mike, where are you now, sir?
You see behind me? Birmingham, Alabama, baby. I got an office. I just started this new job, and I'm in the commercial real estate business, but I got a place down here downtown Birmingham, and it's just it's I don't use the term living the dream because I think people say that sarcastically, but I got 6 grandchildren, and I got great family. My wife and I are in a second marriage. We've been married for 10 years, but we have 5 kids between us, 6 grandchildren between us. And, I try to be as good a husband and as good a father. And my grandkids call me Manny. That's kind of that's what people know me as now, as Manny. I just think it's a great name. My oldest grandchild came up with it, which is, I'm like, yep. It's kind of like Dick Tracy. That's a great name. I'll stick with it. I love it.
You got to be a great grandfather, man. One of the toughest, smartest grandfathers too, boy. They'll remember that.
Well, Paul, I'm going to tell you something. I have my right shoulder. I've had multiple shoulder surgeries. I have my right shoulder operated. And I meant to do this, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to send it to you. My Greg Carr, who was also on the field with us at the coin toss in the 84 Iron Bowl at Legion Field. I could see it from out my window. I gave him a picture when I was going in there, getting my shoulder looked at. I said, hey, man, I want you to have this. And he put it on his wall. But he said, I don't know if I want this up there because we lost the game. I'm like, well, I want you to have it because we were on the field together. But, I got a couple of good pictures of us out there for that coin toss. That really meant a lot to me.
Oh, do you? Oh, I'd love a picture
I'll get it to you. I'll find it. I meant to do it last night, just kind of got swamped with some other things, but I'll get it to you because, buddy, I tell you, it means a lot. And I think that you and I have talked about it. There's a lot more to being a football player, than just being a good, being one of the stars. And, being a blue collar, you were definitely a blue collar. Being a leader, you were definitely that. Being the kind of guy that everybody knew what they could get from you. They knew what you were going to give them every time, and coaches as well. And, being that guy that people looked up to because you were going to outwork anybody on the field or in the weight room. And, that was you. And, I'm proud that we're in touch, and to get you to go on and have that effect over young people's lives for all these years. I know they're better off having had you as a coach.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Nick, thank you so much for joining the show. What a blast today.
I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of this because what I've heard for the last 45 minutes is just astounding. And I'm sure that Mike and I could sit down and talk about a lot of things to do with Bruce and some other things that I'd like.
I'll take it one step further. We will, and I'll be at your bar. And
all right.
When you come down, if you forget the name, we're just trying to think of a Springsteen song.
Live them every day, right?
There you go.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
Thanks, Mike. Love
Mike,
you,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Paul, thank you.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. Have a great. Hey, I just wanted to, take Nick. There we go. Hey, what a show. Thanks for joining the show. Next week, Chris Moore, great punter at Alabama and with the Buffalo Bills. So all you Bills fans out there, especially you, Donna Hartnett, watch the show next week. Thanks. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at HillKellyDodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Step One works so hard to get you in the perfect car. Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step One Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step One supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step One Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
75 years of service in high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than the simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.